there's the Wye Valley.
That's the Wye Valley. So the Forest of Dean comes out to there.
I see.
And that's not the Forest of Dean.
Right,
that's
yeah.
right.
So I understand you come from the Forest of Dean, Ralph.
That's right, Alan.
Yeah. When were you born, and what part of the Dean were you born in then?
Well, I was born in 1915, in October, a memorable date.
Absolutely.
And that is where my home, I always regarded it as home after we'd left, that we, in the, about 1922, we moved to South Wales.
I see.
Because that is where the work
was.
The profitable work.
Mm.
And, well, as a family, we lived all together. My grandmother lived in one cottage. We lived in the adjoining, and my mother's sister lived in the other one. Where I lived was not eligible to be called a village. It was more a little country hamlet with a few, about 20 houses. And the principal occupation was the local mines. And
coal mines.
The coal mines.
Yeah.
My dad, he worked on the surface, looking after the winding machinery and the boilers.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yes. When I was 11, my dad walked into the bedroom in the morning, as I remember it clearly, and he said, "Ralph, I've got something to show you." So I walked into Mum's bedroom and I said, "Oh, a baby," and I walked out. So I went back upstairs and I said to my mum, "Can I hold him?" And that was my brother, and he's 11 years younger than me.
And he's still alive, is he?
Oh yes, he still lives in Greenbottom. My brother is 11 years younger than he was. I was born in 1915, so he was born in 1926. I left home in the late 20s and moved. I served in a barber's apprenticeship, and to get a job I had to move to Worthing.
Had your family lived in the hamlet for many generations, or did your grandparents?
Well, 3 generations that I can be sure of.
Oh, so your family
my mother was born there, and my grandmother was born in a very short distance away.
Are your memories of your school days happy memories?
Oh yes, they weren't spectacular. There was, there was nothing that I can say that was really exciting about it. You know.
What were your favourite subjects at school, or wasn't there?
I didn't have a favourite. I didn't have a favourite subject. I was indifferent to pretty well all the subjects.
I'm sure that wasn't true.
School didn't really interest me very much. I was born in 1915, we moved in 1924, so I was that from 9 to 14 I was at school because I wasn't clever enough to go to grammar school, so I left school at 14. But my school days were quite happy. We flew kites and
all the important
did all the
things.
things that I was doing,
So what did the women do in the village? Was your mother a keen homemaker and good at cooking?
My mother was a homemaker and good at cooking, good at everything at home. We had even when the 1926 strike,
the general strike,
my mother fed us. My dad had to go into the pit on 2 days a week because although there was a strike, the machinery had to be looked after so that when the pits opened they could go straight in and start work.
So the pits would need to be pumped, wouldn't they, because of the water?
The pits had to be pumped to clear the water because if that was neglected, it would fill up with water and that would be unworkable then.
Yes, they would lose the pit.
Yeah.
I understand, yeah.
So,
How long did the strike go on for people who aren't in the know?
So the general strike went on, I think it went on for several months, didn't
2
it?
weeks.
1920, 2 weeks?
2 weeks
Only
of strike,
2 weeks.
but the lockout went on for about 6 weeks.
I thought it was a couple of months altogether,
Yes,
more or less.
Yes, but the strike was a fortnight, and they were locked out.
And then they were locked out.
Yeah.
What was the atmosphere like for ordinary people at that time then?
Well, I, of course, was a 9-year-old youngster that wasn't really interested in anything except what I was flying kites and
Yeah.
I mean, it was quite a happy time. There's, of course, when the strike was on, the strike actually lasted a fortnight, but the lockout spread for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So,
So money was getting short for the people in the village.
well, fortunately, my mother was a good manager, and I never noticed anything.
Yeah, that's marvellous, isn't it?
Yeah.
She must have done. She
So
must have
was-
really
She
been
was a very
clever.
good manager, yes. We noticed any effects from the strike, except that my dad was home a lot, but what he used to do, with others, they used to go to the spoil tips, you know, in South Wales and the same as other places. There's a lot of spoil comes out of mines, as well as coal. That is put in a bit, so there's great big spoil heaps
Yes.
near the mines. And but when the strike was on, my dad with others used to go onto these spoil tips because there was always coal.
Yeah, of course,
So
yes.
the way, and he'd come home with a bag of coal.
And did the employers try to stop that, or did they?
No, they couldn't.
Mm.
They couldn't stop that. Because they, you know, they weren't actually strike breaking.
No, of
They were
course not.
working. They were working harder.
than they normally did, perhaps.
Well, worked as hard anyway.
No.
But
no.
my dad used to go out in the morning and come home with back coal. So we always had a fire, and Mum always did her cooking. So
So how would your mum have done the cooking? Would you have had an old-fashioned range or something?
well, there was an oven by the side of the fire. That was it. That was how she cooked. I mean, on the fire and in the oven, and in front of the oven. I mean, we had a toaster which we used to put on the bars. We used to toast for breakfast.
Oh yes, yes, I remember those.
And
Oh, they under
my
there.
dad used to carve.
Oh, did he?
Oh,
That's
very
what
good.
it is, carving.
Gosh.
So how did your father learn to do that carving then?
Well, the job he had was looking after machinery, the pumping machinery, and as long as everything was running fine, he could sit down and he used to do his carving.
Ah, lovely.
Did they move back to the Forest of Dean in your family eventually, or did they stay
Yes.
in Wales?
What happened was that we moved to South Wales, and then, of course, in about 3 years came the general strike, and things went from good to bad. The outcome of it was that my parents decided that the best thing to do was to go back to where we came from.
Really?
So we moved back to the Forest of Dean, and
When was that?
that was in 1927 or 1928, because I was still at school.